In the reading that we had just a moment ago, Jesus told about people who are trying to build. I remember when I was a little boy, there was a place down in Miami on 36th Street near 27th Avenue. It was a big hotel that had never been finished. It sat there vacant for literally years and years and years. Finally somebody rented it or bought it from a bank or whatever, and they started raising chickens in it. And it came to be known as the Chicken Hotel. It's kind of a sad thing to see somebody start a project that is worthy, that is good, and then drop out of it. Because they're not willing to make the cost, to make the price, to pay the cost, or else they don't understand just what this is. And so that's the way life goes sometimes for too many people. Now I want to tell a story about myself. When I was a little kid, I didn't like school. I was like a lot of other kids that I know, but I also know a lot of kids who enjoyed school. I made reasonably good grades. I got along all right. I didn't have a lot of trouble. I was not a rowdy guy or anything like that, but that was just kind of the way of the thing. When I got to my last year in high school, I started enjoying school. I liked it. And then I looked back on it and I said to myself, I've missed so much. There are so many things that I could have been learning that I didn't learn just because I didn't like it. Boys and girls, young people, don't let yourself fall into that trap. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. Fortunate for me, and I'm so thankful for this, learning had become a great challenge to me. And I enjoy studying. I enjoy the work that I do in Korea, where I'm able to go over and teach ministerial students. And I'm enjoying the amount of preparation that I have to put into that. But just think of all that I missed in those years before. But I learned some things from those years as I look back on them. Yes, there were some seeds planted. Some seeds that were very important that my parents planted in me, and it took quite a while for those seeds to sprout and bring forth any kind of fruit. One of those seeds was that I found out that success comes with a price. Now, we're going to do two things in this sermon. One is we're going to talk about the price of success. And there may be business people, there may be people who have their own shops, there may be people who are working for someone else or whatever, and you're going to say to yourself, he's talking about success in my business. Yes, I am. But then we're also talking about success in life as a Christian. Yes, I am. So I'm going to ask you to participate. I'll tell you when, and I'll tell you what to say. But I want to hear it said with enthusiasm, with depth of feeling, and with meaning. First of all, success of any kind comes at a price. A price in time, a price in setting worthy goals, a price in hard work. Paul said, I press on toward the goal. And Paul was such an amazing man. He says, you know, I haven't met it yet. I'm not there yet. I used to think that goals, you know, kind of like football. You got to cross the goal line. You got to make the goal. And soccer and all of these kinds of sports, you got to get the ball in the hoop. You got to get the puck in the net. You got to get the ball over the goal line. Otherwise, you don't score. You know, life is not like that, folks. Life is a journey, and if you're fortunate, if you're lucky, you never quite make what you wish you could make. Oh, you have successes along the way that are very encouraging to you, but you never say, I've done it. The goals of my life are completed. Where do I go from here? I don't have anything else to work for. This is a journey, folks. This is a process. We're working toward it all the time. And so Paul says, I have not yet attained it. He says, but this is what I do. I forget the things that are behind. I'm looking forward to the things that are before. And so he says, I press on toward what? Toward the goal of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. It comes at a price. I have to be willing to pay the price. There's another price that unfortunately is so lacking in so much of our society, and that's the price of integrity. Integrity in so many situations just has gone down the drain. If lying about a little thing is okay in society, and it's okay for me, if a little misrepresentation over here will gain something for me, that's okay. If I can cheat a little bit on my income tax and save a couple of bucks, that's okay. No, it ain't okay. It is not okay. Integrity is so important. So that contracts are not so that I can't get out of something or I have to do something. Contracts are nothing more than a reminder of what in my heart I have agreed to. Whether I sign it or not is not the point. The fact is that I have agreed to it. It's a handshake. And people who know you know whether your handshake is really worth something or not. Integrity is a part of the price that I have to pay. Another part of the price that I have to pay for success is the fact that I have to create a value system. A value system. Somebody, for example, may say, well, I didn't come here this morning to make any kind of an important decision in my life. Gee, you know, in some ways I'll have to say, I kind of hate to tell you this. Before you leave here, you're going to make a decision. And it's going to be a very important decision for you. If you're not a Christian, you're going to decide something today. You're going to decide, I'm going to become a Christian. Or you're going to decide, I'm not going to become a Christian. It's a pretty important decision. You're going to decide, I am going to work on integrity. Or I'm not going to work on integrity. You're going to decide, I'm going to work on this whole thing of setting worthy goals for myself. Or I'm not going to do that. Now, this is true in life, it's true in business, it's true in family, it's true in the Christian life. And here's what I want you to say. I want everybody to say, the Christian life is like that, isn't it? Can you do that? I want to hear everybody say, the Christian life is like that, isn't it? The Christian life is like that, isn't it? I didn't hear you. Say it again. The Christian life is like that, isn't it? Okay. Well, there's another thing that I had to learn about this whole thing of the price of success, and that is that there are consequences for my actions. For example, if I go into a job interview and I'm dressed in a shaggy way, and this is at a bank. Okay, I go in and I'm dressed in shabby clothes. They're not clean. I haven't taken a bath. I haven't shaved. I just, you know, and I walk in there and I'm there for a job interview, and they turn me down. And later I found out, why did they turn me down? Because you did not have consideration enough to come dressed properly for a job in the bank. Well, I might say, so what? I know what I'm doing. But the bank says, no, wait a minute. You didn't come up to our standards. And so there are consequences to my actions. No matter what situation I'm in, no matter what I happen to be doing, there are consequences for my action. You remember something that the Bible says about this? Whatever a man sows, what? That he'll also reap. You never saw a farmer go out and sow corn, reap apples. You never saw him go out and sow wheat and reap barley. No, there are consequences for my action. So, if I want life to treat me right, and I do, I've got to treat life right. If I want other people to be courteous to me, I have to be courteous to them. If I want people to like me, I have to be, number one, a likable person, and I'll have to like them. And there are consequences to my action. I can lose my temper. I can get angry at somebody and come back and apologize. But you know the old story, it's kind of like taking the pillow out, cutting a big hole in it, throw the feathers everywhere, and no, you can't gather them up. You just can't do it. And so I need to know that there are consequences to my actions. Some of these consequences are very, very severe. Some might not be so severe. But as a young person, I've heard all my life, well, kids, you got to sow your wild oats. No, you don't. You don't have to sow your wild oats. You can live a moral, ethical life. If you sow your wild oats, you know what kind of harvest you're going to have? You're going to gather up some wild oats. There are young people who have made so many terrible mistakes in their lives that they spend the rest of their lives trying to overcome what took place. Now, that ain't what we'd like to hear. That is not what we'd like to hear. We'd like to hear about forgiveness and reconciliation and people forgetting the bad things. Yes, that's what we'd like to hear. But, you know, life's not like that. When we begin thinking about sowing our wild oats and start thinking about the harvest that comes and think about reaping what we sow, hey folks, the Christian life is like that, isn't it? Say it again. The Christian life is like that, isn't it? That was pretty good. Personal responsibility is another thing that I learned. You know, your parents, your teachers, your government, society, the circumstances that we grew up in, there's all kind of ways that I can use as a scapegoat to say, well, I'm not responsible for this because my parents were not very good. I was raised by in a society that was corrupt, this and that and the other thing, you know. Let me tell you a story that I've heard this story a number of times from this individual, but I was over to see him yesterday. A fellow by the name of Emmett Nolan. He lives in Camarillo. He's a football coach. He coached under Wilkinson at University of Oklahoma. He was assistant coach, and then he coached in high school out in Thousand Oaks. He was a captain in the Army during Second World War. He was in the Battle of the Bulge. He was a paratrooper. He spent 31 days without ever being able to take his clothes off and change clothes. He did not take his shoes off for 31 days in the cold winter at the Battle of the Bulge. He knew what it was like. And later in his life, he has been called on to go to a variety of schools and talk to the kids in junior high school and high school about what life is really like. And as we were talking yesterday, he said, Jack, I go to the jails sometime, and to the juvenile detention halls and things. And they asked me to talk to these kids about what they can do to improve their lives. And he says, I went to one time, and there's 17, 18-year-old guys there, 16, 17, 18, and they were in for all kinds of different problems. And he said, you know, you blame, well, I was poor. That's the reason I got this way. My parents split up. That's the reason I got this way. Society didn't provide for me what society ought to provide. That's the reason I'm this way. Rosie, this fellow has a nickname, Rosie. His cheeks are very rosy. He's been called that all his life. And Rosie said, Jack, I said to him, how many of you guys have ever lived your whole childhood without electricity? No hands went up. He says, I was raised without electricity. How many of you have ever lived your whole childhood with no indoor plumbing? No hands went up. How many of you have ever gone to work in the morning at dawn and work until sunset and make $1? No hands went up. He said, how many of you have ever walked miles to school and then come home at night and have to help with the chores around the farm? No hands went up. He says, you see, these are the scapegoats that so many have used. You blame this one, blame this one, blame this one, blame this one. When the Bible teaches personal responsibility in life, personal responsibility in your Christian life, personal responsibility in your business, in your family, personal responsibility in your school, personal responsibility in every aspect of your life. Hey folks, the Christian life is like that, isn't it? Let me hear you say it. The Christian life is like that, isn't it? Yes, it certainly is. Well, someone came to me this morning and said, I took the qualifying test. Jordan, he's the one that did that. In his school, he had to take a standardized test. And I said, Jordan, how'd you do on it? Well, I won't know until the summertime. But you know, here's something. I found something else out. Because he had studied and makes good grades in his school, the chances are very, very good that old Jordan's going to make a good grade. You see, there are consequences to the things that we do. And there's personal responsibility for all of those things. Well, I found this out too. I've got to set priorities. There are some things that are important, and there's some things that are not important. Sometime in churches of Christ, we get so tied up with nomenclature. Be sure to call this what it's supposed to be and call that what it's supposed to be, and don't mix them up and don't add to them or anything like that. But we forget that, hey folks, our mission is to convert people to Christ. Maybe we're majoring in minors. Jesus talked about this. He says to the Pharisees, oh, you know, you get all excited about this. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. He says, you tithe mint and anise and cumin, these little spices. Oh, you're so particular about your tithing. You tithe all these things. But you leave undone the weightier matters of the law, love and justice and faith. Now these you should have done, but not left the other undone. He says, you're a bunch of hypocrites. You strain out the gnat and what? Swallow the camel. And that's the way Jesus described These people who are so particular about this little thing and that little thing, when we need to learn to set priorities that are worthy of our time and our effort and our money and the things that bring people to Christ. And let's not forget, that's our mission. That is our mission, to bring people to Christ. We can do that in a variety of ways, but doing it is what is important. Well, in setting these priorities, sometimes business has some better ideas than churches have. I've heard businessmen lecture on this. And you know the old thing, make an A list, and a B list, and a C list. And we've probably all heard this at one time or another, haven't we? Or we read about it. Do the things that are on the A list first, do the things that are on the B list next, and the C list will probably take care of itself. Setting priorities is just such a very, very important thing. Oh, by the way, that reminds me of something here. The Christian life is like that, isn't it? The Christian life is like that, isn't it? Yes. Okay. Rudyard Kipling wrote something very interesting among the many things that he wrote that were very interesting. He wrote a poem. It's kind of a long poem, but I'm going to read the whole thing. This poem is very familiar to us. If. He wrote it about one little word, if. Listen to the poem. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubtings too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about and never deal in lies, or being hated, don't give in to hate, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth that you have spoken, twisted by knaves to make traps for fools, or watch the things that you gave your life to broken and stoop down and build them up again with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all of your winnings and risk it all on a pitch and toss and lose and start again at the beginning, never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and your nerves and your sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on where there is nothing in you except the will which says, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, then yours is the earth and everything in it. And what's more, you'll be a man, my son. You see, the Christian life costs. You and I must recognize that there is a big price to pay. Success in business, success in your family, success in your work, success in school, success in your community, success any place you look is very demanding And there's always a price to pay. And you know what? The Christian life is like that, isn't it?
The Christian life.
The Christian life is like that, isn't it? The decision time now. Are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to surrender to the Lord? You can say to yourself, no, today is not the day, some other day. You can say maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, but not right now. Jesus said, nobody who has put his hand to the plow and then turns back is fit for the kingdom. He invites you to come fully aware that this is going to be a life of sacrifice. This is going to be a life of self-denial. But I'm willing to do it. Why? Because God so loved me that he gave his only begotten Son. Will you come while we stand together and sing, please?